Hey, my friends, it's me, Ron Williams, and welcome back to the Ron Williams YouTube channel. Listen, today's a day that I really enjoy doing. It's our Fact or Fiction Day, and we have 5 really good questions that we want to go through. Now, a couple of these questions I'm actually going to demonstrate for you to make it more real, and also so that you can see it in context. So the first one is, can you lose weight and build muscle at the same time? Fact or fiction? You can lose weight and build muscle at the same time. Is that possible? Is that a fact or is it fiction? It is absolutely a fact. For years and years and years, that's what I did, is I constantly got rid of the body fat and at the same time built more muscle. And it has a lot to do with your diet and nutrition and the way you train. It's so important to maximize your training at the same time, focus in on your diet. The way you set up your diet is you look at your end goal and say, this is my goal, and then I fuel my body to help me reach that goal. And my training goes the same way. Whatever I want to accomplish with my body, I design my training program around those end goals. Now, is it easy to do? Absolutely not. It's not easy to do. You have to be more scientific. You have to count macronutrients. You have to, make sure you're getting the proper sleep, and you have to judge progress by progress. You don't judge the progress by how sore you are. You judge the progress by, are you stronger? Is your waist smaller? Are you losing weight? Can you do more reps? Is your form better? That's progress. Are you more flexible? You want something that's very tangible. Soreness can change. You can do something today and next week. It may not make you sore, but that doesn't mean you're not progressing. So the answer to that is absolutely. It's fact that you can lose weight and put on muscle at the same time. Next question. Can you build muscle at a caloric deficit? Fact or fiction? Is it possible to build muscle at a caloric deficit? What do you think? Can you build muscle at a caloric deficit? I'm going to answer that like this. I would say it's impossible to build muscle at a caloric deficit because you need those calories to build the muscle. When you work the muscle, you're tearing the muscle down. When you tear that muscle down, even though you've worked that muscle, you have a pump and it feels bigger. It hasn't grown. You've just got blood pumped into that area. Now your recovery is where you grow. Depending on how much you tore that muscle down would determine how much growth you're going to get. How much rest, recovery, and nourishment you feed that muscle determines how much growth you're going to get. All of those variables are very important. So after you tear the muscle down, you've got to feed it, and you've got to fuel it and give it the nutrients it needs so that it can repair and grow. You want the muscle to grow? Muscle is made up of protein, and the energy is the carbohydrates. If you don't have protein and carbohydrates, how can the muscles grow? So that would be fiction. You can't really make that muscle grow without giving it the nutrients that it needs. Great question. Okay, let's go to number 3. Leg extensions are bad for your knees. Fact or fiction? Leg extensions are bad for your knees. Fact or fiction? You answer that. Would you say it's bad for your knees? I'll answer it like this. The way most people do leg extensions, very bad for your knees. If you have problems with your knees, bad for your knees. If you're using too much weight on your knees, bad for your knees. But there is a way that you can do the leg extensions that are absolutely conducive and beneficial. So I want to show you what that looks like. Let's go. One of the things that really make the leg extensions dangerous and destructive, especially to the knees, is you find people that they put as much weight as their leg can possibly move without really concentrating on the muscle. They're concentrating on manipulating and flipping that weight up. So they have to get a momentum and a thrust at the very beginning of that rep. All of that pressure is on the joint. So as they flip the weight up with all the heavy weight, all of the pressure is on the joint. But the idea is first to pull from the hip flexor. Ooh! Contract the muscle first and then extend all the way out. Ooh. Keep the leg flexed, pressure on those quads and extend all the way out. Forcing the mind into the muscle and squeezing. That's how you want to do it. So if are leg extensions bad for you? They can be. But if you do them right, you'll lighten the weight, concentrate on the form, and it'll bring out the separation and definition in your quads. Really a good exercise to do that. But if you put a lot of weight on there and start just squeezing the weight up, it's going to damage those knees. It may not do it today, it may not do it tomorrow. But you keep doing it and you'll find out it'll cause some damage. Okay, here we go. Question number 4. Fact or fiction? Muscle imbalances can lead to serious injury. Fact or fiction? Muscle imbalances can lead to serious injury. You answer it. Okay, muscle imbalance. A muscle imbalance is when you have two muscles and they're antagonistic muscle groups, like the quadricep and the hamstring. They're antagonistic muscle groups. Can that lead to injury? Absolutely. In everyday life, we do things with our lower extremities and we do things with our body that if we have imbalances, it can definitely lead to injury. One very common injury is sprinting. If the quadricep is imbalanced with the hamstring, if you squat in such a way that builds the quadricep, but it doesn't affect the hamstring, you have an imbalance. When you try to sprint and you put a tremendous amount of pressure on those quads, those hamstrings are more apt to tear. If your quads are flexible and your hamstrings are inflexible, you have an imbalance. You're more apt to have lower back problems. So, balancing out your body is very, very important. Very important. So, the answer to that is you can get injured because of the imbalances. And in our world, what we do a lot of, our shoulders come forward. And just notice with people that you're standing around or you're walking around, when they're just standing straight, I want you to notice this. You'll see when people are standing up and they're standing to the side, if the arms fall directly to the side, they've pretty much got a balance. But most of the time, the shoulders and the hands fall forward because they're front dominant. Everything is done to the front. And they've elongated the lats and they have an imbalance. So we've got to open that chest and squeeze with the exercises that we do to try to correct that posture. Otherwise, we develop imbalance, 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 and it continues from there. So balance is absolutely important. Let's look at the last question here. Okay, fact or fiction? You can't get your chest to grow, fact or fiction, unless you use the bench press. Fact or fiction? Your chest will not grow unless you use bench press. You answer that. Okay, here we go. What causes the muscle to grow is adding stress to it and damaging that muscle, and the body doing what it does. It goes in to repair the damage. It's a survival mechanism, and when it repairs the damage, it builds off of the stress that was applied to it. So what the body is doing is saying, if you're going to apply this kind of stress, I've got to prepare myself for that to happen again. So if I put 100 pounds of pressure on it, the body tears down and it repairs itself to be able to handle that 100 pounds of pressure. And it says, okay, I can do this comfortably. Now I'm going to put 120 pounds of pressure on it. The body tears down, the tissue tears down, and you micro tear it, and it repairs according to that stress. And it continues to repair, and that's what causes the growth process. Just because it's not a bench press, the body's not looking and said, is this a bench press? The body is saying, are you applying stress? If you apply the stress, I'll respond to the stress. So if that stress is a cable crossover, I applied stress, the body responds to that stress. If I apply 70 pounds of stress to it, it's going to respond to that. Next week, 80 pounds of stress. Next week, 90 pounds of stress. It's going to continue to grow. The important thing is I want to make sure that the joint that is attached to the muscle that I'm working is in a proper position so I can preserve the joint and build the muscle. Now there's some exercises that we can do that will build the muscle and also damage the joint. It's only a matter of time before we damage that joint and we can't even work that muscle. So the important thing is to find out what are the exercises that protect the joint and still builds that muscle, because we want to do this for a long time. Now that's the end of our Fact or Fiction today. I want to thank you guys for sending those questions in. And I also want you to know that I really love you guys and I love working with you and building this channel. We're going to have soon, because of some of the questions, it let me know that there's a real need out there. Some nutritional programs and also some weight training programs so I can become more intimate in your lives. We're putting some of those things together, so you stay tuned for those. And if you're interested in something like that, you make sure you respond and say, Ron, I can't wait till you get those programs together, nutrition plans together. I'm one that's on board. Have your friends subscribe, and until next time, love you guys.